Train with the Best podcast, the podcast that's bringing high performance to the people. I'm Craig Hoffman, a media and fitness professional.
And I'm Chris Gorez, master trainer and international presenter.
And today, Chris, it's time for our insert number here, annual holiday mailbag. We do this every year at the end of the year. We get your questions off of social media, and then we answer them. Chris, something no one in the history of podcasts has ever done before.
You're right. It's such an original idea. I can't believe nobody's ever thought of that.
I mean, we invented it like however what the number is years ago, and now there's a bunch of copycats. But we were the originators of the podcast, not like advice columns from like the 1920s in newspapers or whatever. We invented it. We invented the format. So we have a couple of questions, and then we're also going to try to come up with one to ask each other. So let us get started. This was a deep one. Chris, I'm going to have to pull it back up here on Instagram. Ooh. You know me, I'm always prepared. Always have all the ducks in a row. Have everything in the right order at all times. Never have to vamp for time. Okay. Jeff asks, what's something that you wish everyone knew that you feel like is rare knowledge?
That I feel like is rare knowledge?
Yeah, so a kind of thing that like not enough people know this, but everybody should.
So here's the thing that I found out about rare knowledge. It doesn't seem rare. It seems like common knowledge. And then you start to realize that, wait, not everybody does this, right? Yeah. And the common knowledge or the rare knowledge that I wish other people knew is recovery is more important than strength training, right? Like what you're doing in between workouts and how much you're giving yourself in between workouts is probably more important than the way that we break you down in that 45 to hour and a half session, right? So like what we do in 60 minutes is not gonna outdo what you do in the other 23 hours of the day. Those still matter way more, and it seems like everybody should know that because 23 hours is obviously a lot more than one. But yeah, that's the rare knowledge that I wish everybody was more hip to.
I remember when I was a trainer at Sport and Health, that was one of the things that we were taught to kind of preach to our clients is, you know, our biggest package that we sold was 3 times a week training and hour sessions. And it's like, hey, that means in a 168-hour week, I see you for 3 hours. Like, what do you do in those other 165? I'm not a miracle worker. If you're not doing your job there, then there's only so much that I can help you. I think specifically in the performance world, this is extra true. But I think in general, this is also good for like Gen Pop, anybody with a fitness endeavor, is that harder is not always better. In that like doing
more is not better.
Yeah. Like if you're working out 4 times a week and they're all like super high intensity, give it your all hit sessions, like there's going to be extreme diminishing returns of any kind of result you're trying to achieve, whether that be weight loss, strength, speed, power, anything that you're trying to achieve in the fitness realm. Like you have to have some highs and some lows. And so that's not always satisfying. I mean, yesterday I did 45 minutes of really easy ergs because right now I'm high rocks mode. And so I need to get more proficient in that area. But also just like my body was worn down and I needed a low day this week anyway. And so lo and behold, 15 minutes on the ski, 15 minutes on the row, 15 minutes on an assault bike, pedaling real slow. And my heart rate's in kind of zone 2 the whole time. And I wake up today and my whoop's like, hey, you're 94% recovered. Like, let's go rip. And so like the highs and the lows are good for you in every kind of way. And it goes with what you said, obviously, because if you're just constantly breaking down, you're never giving your body a chance to recover. But I think that is in a culture where like hard work is glorified, hard work is preached, that like smarter work is actually better to achieve the results. I think that is actually a rare piece of knowledge that I wish more people knew, because then they could have more sustainable results and a better, like a healthier relationship with exercise over the long run.
Yeah. You know, I want to add to that because like you and I write programs for people, right? Sometimes they're better than others, but when you and I write programs, we're taking the best guess that we can at what you're going to feel like on phase 2, week 3, day 4, right? Like,
sure.
Just because we wrote it one way doesn't mean that that's how you have to do it, right? So like what you're just talking about, sometimes your body just needs a day and you need to be able to listen to your body and say, no, I'm going to back off and I'm going to do things at 50%, 60% because I want to get this work in. I want to focus on like seven technique today or whatever it is, or focus on mobility. I don't need to, right, like do the workout as written, because again, like
Right.
no matter what I do as a trainer, I can't tell the future. I can't tell what's going to happen to you on any given day of the month or the week. So I don't know what mood you're going to be in, how much rest you got the night before. So like what I'm writing down is like my best guess at what would be good for you that day. That doesn't mean that that's what you should stick to, because the honest truth is I don't stick to that. When I have
Right.
clients and I have teams and I have groups that I'm working with, yes, I have plans, but I don't always stick to them. It's very rare, other than like day one, week one, it's very rare that everything gets stuck to the plan. That the plan is always changing.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And sometimes you write something down too as a trainer, and then you go, that was stupid.
Yeah.
I did too much. And like that happened to me last week. Like we're not talking about just like a trainer who's getting their foot wet. Like this happens to veterans where we get, and this is why like it's good to have, like, this isn't a rare piece of knowledge, but like having good mentors and having good people,
Right.
colleagues who you can run stuff off of. I actually almost called you on this. I was like, I can figure it out, and I did. I just figured it out the hard way. And I work with a bunch of sickos who love doing too much, so they were fine with it. But last week, like I had too much in the workout, and
Mhm.
I wound up having to this week where we typically like keep the same workout for 3 weeks in a row in our elite athlete program. Like I'm actually going to take one huge chunk out because I had 3 things that kind of worked similar stuff, were too high in combination, too high of an energy demand. And there was no way to maximize all 3. So I'm taking one out, and that'll go in the next programming block now 2 weeks from now. So it's not like it's gone forever, but like you got to make choices sometimes. And so even trainers that have been doing it for a long time, like we'll adapt and we'll change. And if we're willing to do that, then if you're getting if you're like a client listening to this and you're getting a workout off of the internet, and it could be from like the world's greatest trainer, and it could be a great workout, but it might not be the workout you need on that day. Like, don't be afraid to, hey, that feels like a little too much for me. I like the reasoning behind this, but it feels like maybe this is the pro athlete version and I'm not a pro athlete. Like, take a couple sets out, take the weight down, take this, do that. Like, don't be afraid to customize it a little bit for you, especially if you have the knowledge to do that, or to ask a professional. So I'd say that's that all kind of goes into the recovery / more is not always better
Right.
methodology that I think is rare
Right.
knowledge that is not actually or that I wish more people would know.
Yep.
All right. Next question is, what is one thing that you started incorporating this year as an athlete or trainer that has markedly improved your performance or your client's performance?
One
And
thing
now it's
that
time for a word from our sponsors. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Although we do have some great ones.
we do have some great ones. So it's always like a medley of things, because like I don't think that there's anything that we're gonna do that's like brand new, right? Everything that's out there has been done before. It's the piano, right? Like the piano has 88 keys. There's only so many different new notes that you're gonna play, but the chord progressions might be a little bit different. The combination of chords might be a little bit different. So for me, it's like the way that we combine things. So one of the things that I've incorporated a lot more this year than I have in years past is more lower leg or lower extremity work. So really beefing up the calves. And we kind of went away from that because back when I was growing up, there was a lot of work on the strength shoes or the jump shoals where people would walk
Yeah.
around on their toes, and like this was the thing that was going to make you jump higher. And then we discovered that, hey, that's one thing, but really the power is going to come from the hips. So we got to get you stronger from the hips, and that's what people started doing. And they got away from training the lower extremity. So now we're building that back in, because we know that there's a quality to lower leg stiffness that's going to help you be explosive and be powerful and jump higher and sprint faster and all those things. So we started incorporating those back in. And I've done a lot of the overcoming isometric stuff on the lower leg extremity. So I like to use ISOFIT to do that. I like to just get anything where I can get that heel off the ground and pushing in as hard as I can to develop that stiffness in the lower leg.
Yeah. I mean, as an athlete, I'm shifting like what I'm training for. So like zone 2 cardio, because I'm trying to become more of an endurance athlete, which is happening at some level of a rate. Like, it's happening. I still did. I cranked out a 300-meter ski the other day, and I was
Nice.
like, the gap between what this is and like, because so I have a 300-meter ski in my elite athlete block right now, because like our athletes never push like that on the ski because you're practicing for a longer endurance, and especially the ski erg is one that we actually need to slow people down a lot because it's the first station,
Mhm.
and if you kill yourself on the ski and then you're just screwed for
Right.
the rest of the race, it's bad. But like practicing generating power on that and being able to do it efficiently is good. So I'm like, we're going to mix it up. We're going to throw one in. And like knowing what some of my athletes ski at for the 1,000 and comparing their time to my time on the 300, I'm like, yeah, I still am a little bit bursty. Still, my gap is still fairly large, and theirs is a lot smaller. So I had a decent time, and I was like, that was cool. But I need to be able to do something closer to this for a lot longer. And so I'm doing a lot of the zone 2 like stuff. But I think the other big one for me that's more of like when I think about training methodology is I'm thinking about the neurology a lot more. I'm thinking about things a lot through the lens of competitive sport and the mix of practice versus training and like what that means. And
Mhm.
this is a simulation, and like the point of this isn't necessarily a strength or a speed game, but a neurology, like getting comfortable being uncomfortable or getting comfortable or whatever, like psychological side of it, and understanding on an even deeper level the importance of that. And that's like some reading that I've done. Steve Magnus's book, Do Hard Things, was really formative for me. And there's a bunch of other really great books. Some that are like more intense trauma, for instance, related, versus some of the stuff in those books is not necessarily trauma related. It's just like a better understanding of how the brain works.
Mhm.
Versus some that are just like more performance related. But I think thinking for me as a trainer, especially, but then this obviously impacts my own training, really always trying to consider the neurology as well as the physiology, if you will. I think that's been kind of my big level up in 2024.
Yep. Yep.
Is there one for you? I actually have an answer for this. So if you don't, that's okay. But is there one for you that you want to learn more about in 2025, like the next level up for you? This has
Like
now
what
become a
do I
New
want?
Year's resolution episode.
Right. 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 I mean, the neurology stuff that you talk about is always a cool topic. Um, with the presence of all of these new gadgets, right? Whether it be force plates or dynamometers or all that other stuff, like what is the information that we really need to uh, train or hold on to, or what is it that we really need to track? Because we can track everything now,
Right.
and like that's not useful. We don't need to know everything. Like what are the data points that we need to know? And then just like for me going through the stuff that we're going through with Mila, like what are the no fly zones? What is the real research um, in ACL recovery and return to play, right? Because there are a lot of blanket answers, and this is in no way like as disrespect to doctors and surgeons, but they just don't know the things that we know about biomechanics and performance training. The same
Mm,
way I don't know about like arthroscopy the way that Dr. O does or Dr. Nunziata does, right? So
right.
like we live in different worlds, and when you're not in that world, it's easy to say like this blanket statement and just err for sure for them, err on the side of caution and say, hey, 12 months for an ACL rehab, right? But like what we're seeing now with Mila and somebody else that I'm also working with, we're not going to wait 12 months. They'll be back on the field way before that 12 months. And then you
Right.
start to look at the research of like what does that 9 month window look like? Why did that even come? Why was that even a thing? Like if you look at the research on the American Journal of Sports Medicine, what was that research? What did they track? They didn't really track anything. They tracked time after surgery. They didn't track like what your activity level was like. They didn't know what your life was like before surgery. What return to play even was. They didn't even define what return to play was. Does that mean like you start jogging again? Does that mean that you're back starting on a game? Right. And then like more than half of the participants that started out in that study dropped out because they just lost communication with them. So you
Wow.
actually ended up with a very, very small sample size of athletes that said, hey, this is we found that these athletes had a significantly less return to injury or injury rate or re-injury rate after ACL if you waited 9 months versus waiting 7. But that ended up being such a small sample size of all the ACLs. It was less than like 100. It was less than
Wow.
100 people that like they actually had data on for the entire duration of their return to play protocol. So like we're giving these blanket statements of 9 to 12 months of returning from an ACL based off less than 100 like instances here. So I don't mind it, but like I want to get the whole picture. So like that's my new thing, and it's like it's an old thing, but just like getting good
Yeah.
at something
Well, I
that's
mean,
new
that's the
thing.
thing about anything that's science based is like
Yeah,
there's constant updates.
yeah.
We should have Dr. Wesley Wang back on, physical therapist at Healthy Baller,
Mm-hmm.
who's really big into the ACL rehab space. And he also does, I know, is deep into the research because I know he's posted a lot about like people coming back too fast and some of the data that he's seen. So that could be a fun conversation that you guys could have off air, or we could do it into microphones, and then it's entertaining and informative for everybody.
Right.
My big one is, especially as I get more into the endurance stuff, is I want to have a better understanding of the cardiovascular system and the conditioning side of it. So much of what I know, and I know I'm really strong on, is the muscular stuff and how to progressively overload and get adaptations. And I have a very baseline, like very solid baseline understanding of conditioning and how some of the zone 2 and then the threshold and this, that, like the different zones and kind of intensities of training and how those should be mixed for various things. But I definitely want to get a larger understanding of how those systems work on the conditioning side for more endurance things, and then how that interplays with the muscular training. Because that's the thing that I feel like, I don't want to say I'm guessing on, because it's more than guessing. It's very educated guessing, but that I could have a higher level of mastery on is like, how do we mix the strength, like musculoskeletal needs of the body with the energy systems training that we need for these big endurance events, and whether that's a high rocks or a half marathon or a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just so different than the world that I come out of, which is the one that you mostly live in, which is the sports performance for like field and court sports like basketball,
Right.
football, whatever. And the power development and the motor skill is far more important there than just being able to output at a high level for a long time. And so that element is something that I want to dive deeper into, and mitochondria and capillaries and a bunch of stuff that I'm gonna have to remember from science class. But
Wow.
there's probably some even higher level stuff that I can take out of that I think would be interesting. So if anybody has any good recommendations on things to read or people to listen to on that stuff, I'm all ears. All right, next question in the show here. This is a fun one. What is a fitness trend you want to leave in 2024?
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Yeah.
What what is a fitness trend that I want to leave in 2024 is the same fitness trend that I've wanted to leave for the last 10 years, which is like people going to gyms and setting up a whole goddamn like studio to set up their wads for the day, and they dress up in these tights and these weird outfits to that. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. That I wish that would go away. I wish that has gone away for a long, long time now. Like go to the gym, work out, be the best version of yourself, and like stop intruding on everybody else's ability to do that because you want to post your ass on Instagram or TikTok or whatever.
Amen. And related, if you're not actually a certified trainer who knows what the hell they're talking about, stop giving fitness advice. Because you
Yeah,
are
like
really fit does not mean that you know what you're talking about.
right. Like you're
I wanted to leave that one in 2023, 2022,
oh
2021,
yeah, yeah. For
2018.
however many years that we've been doing that, and I guess this is something that has probably been something for forever, not just in the fitness industry, but yeah, like your ability to look good in tights is not like your ability to coach anybody. So, yeah, I wish that would go away.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm trying to think if there's anything more specific in 2024, but that's
So you mean like trends that were in 2024?
well. I mean, if
That's
you
what.
thought of one, then yeah. I mean, it's our show. We can do what the hell we want.
That's true. It is our show. Let's think. Let's think a little bit. Like, what were some of the big trends in 2024 that you saw? Like High Rocks
Well, I mean,
is here to stay. Like
I was
I
going to say
like
like
High Rocks. That's a good
hybrid
trend.
sports and
Yep.
hybrid
Hybrid
training,
sports
I
is
think
good.
is
Yeah.
mega in right now. And I think we've talked quite a bit because I'm in the space about how I hope that it can continue to get better. And like we had one of my favorite episodes of the year was our chat with Meg Jacoby about that and how she's changed some things and how she's seen the sport change around her. And like, I think it's getting better and better. So like, I hope that that trend continues and that there's a good, healthy hybrid space continuing on into 2025 and beyond. That feels like the
Yeah.
biggest thing in 2024. And like, it started, I feel like, in 23, and then really like 24 was a huge year for High Rocks as a company and like other hybrid adjacent things. So I
Yeah.
definitely think that that's like one of the biggest fitness trends in 2024.
I really think that, yeah, over the last, not just 24, but 23, maybe even 22, like this trend of getting out of like all the cardio classes, like Zumba classes and stuff, right? Like, let's get away from that. Let's get into real strength training, which I think is something that's so valuable and important that everybody should be doing. You should be doing real strength training, but we're moving away from the crazy CrossFit wads into something that's a little bit more structured. I'd still like to see more structure than even like in High Rocks, but like the way that it's trending, I feel like is a good thing. I think people realize we should be lifting weights. We should be doing strength training. We
Yeah.
should
I mean,
be
that's part of the reason I
training
like
intensely.
hybrid fitness
Yeah,
is because it encourages people to be strong and cardiovascularly healthy. And
right.
like, if we're talking about biomarkers and health outcomes, like
Yeah,
those are
like
things
I
that
don't
you
want to
want.
like as a let's say like I'm just training Vina as a 42-year-old woman. Like I don't want you to just go and stretch 3 times a week. That's not
Right.
really what you need. Yeah, do pro athletes do that? Yes, because they need to stretch their muscles. They're using their muscles way more than you are. You need to build muscles, right? So the fact that we've been training that way, not just in 24, but the last couple of years, I think that's a good thing. I'd like to see that continue.
Are there any things that are old trends that are making a comeback?
Yeah, like what we just talked about, some of the strength training stuff. Old trends that are starting to make a comeback. You have these waves of like boxing will come in and out, right? Like rowers will come in and out. Med ball stuff, kettlebell stuff will come in and out. Olympic lifting will come in and out. I think that like as I look around the industry and I see some old school stuff coming back, I'm trying to think.
I feel like there's definitely some people that are dipping back in, like in their discipline, are looking back at the way things used to be when we didn't necessarily have the science to back certain things up, and people, I won't
Yeah.
say we're going off of vibes because like no one was calling them vibes in the 1980s, but like you have like power lifters that are doing plyos, and you're like,
that's what I was gonna
yeah,
say.
like there's like I think returns like, hey, this shit worked. Maybe we should go look at why. And then there's people that now have the science to back up the why.
Yeah.
And thus there's more interdisciplinary training. If you, I don't know if that's the exact right way to phrase it, the optimal way to phrase it, but like interdisciplinary training where power lifters are doing plyos, people that need to be super fast are like, I'm going to lift a shit ton of weight. They're also doing yoga. Like, I think there's like a cool, hey, nothing is off limits for anyone. And if like you want to
Yep.
practice your rhythm and coordination as a professional athlete by doing a Zumba class, then like go on with your bad self.
Yeah. So here's the trend that I would say, like plyometrics for sure.
Yeah.
But then going more in depth to the plyometrics is like the shorter range of motion strength training, right? Like quarter squats and heavy ass pin squats and things like that. I think that has started to come back, which is really cool. And I like it. There's a use for it. And that doesn't mean that you should never squat full range of motion, but like there's still value to doing quarter squats and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that before. And then like FMS became a thing and range of motion became a thing. And everybody said, oh, well, people are getting hurt because of lack of range of motion. They have the lack of mobility. We should do everything full range of motion. And yeah, we should. We should do a lot of full range of motion things, but there's still like a lot of value to a high bar setup on a trap bar deadlift. There's still a lot of value to a quarter squat from the pins. Like those are things that if you watch sprint or if you really got into the Olympics and you watch some of these sprinters and the way that they train and the way that they strength train, they're not going down into full depth range of motion squats, not when they're training for heavy ass weight, right? So like the reintroduction of those things back into the training world and being able to place those things where they need to be and
Right.
value them without having to cancel everything else. Like we can do something without canceling everything else.
Right.
And for a while it was like, no, you either full range of motion squat or you don't squat at all. Like, what the fuck? Right?
Yeah.
Like
If
we
I
can
don't know
do
if
it
this is a
all.
fitness trend that we leave in 2024 or this is another one that predates 2024 by a lot, but like shaming people for their fitness choices when
Right.
their fitness choices have nothing to do with you. And like, yeah, am I going to sit
Yeah.
here and endorse like terrible deadlift form because people are trying to make excuses? Like they're just wrong about
Yeah.
what it means for
There's
their spine?
right.
No.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
if you don't like the way someone's doing something and it has nothing to do with you, like just let them do
Let
what they
them
want
be.
to do. Which
Let
actually
them
leads
do.
me to this one I got on Blue Sky from Pugaru.
Wait, what?
Pugaru,
Okay.
Pugaru.
Okay.
Ask, what is the number one thing a man over 50 should focus on exercise wise? And this is actually, I placed this question here because I think it actually goes back to what we just were saying, which is whatever you can do consistently. Like you probably want to do some strength training. You probably want to do some level
Yeah.
of cardio. Depending
Yeah.
on how you strength train, those two things might wind up being on some level the same. Like you're not going to get your high intensity cardio probably with weights, but like if you do hit stuff, you can. But like my genuine answer would be find something you like, whether that's group fitness or training by yourself with a trainer, by doing watching YouTube videos or Peloton or whatever. And if you're 50 years old, you might have a family or a job and responsibilities. Find something that you enjoy that you can do consistently and do that. Like that is, I know that's not specific, and you wanted me to probably give you a full workout that you can do 4 times a week and do this 3x10 and that 4x8 and whatever. But like, find something that you really like in a place that you like doing it and do it consistently, and you will have better health outcomes than stressing about the fact that you're not working out.
Yeah, all of that, all of those things. Yeah, I mean, like, if there's one thing that you would definitely want to work on or develop now to keep with you into your 60s, 70s, 80s, is it's for sure strength.
Yeah.
But strength can come in so many different ways, right? There isn't like one way to develop strength, and that's the only way to do it. So, like you said, whatever's going to keep you consistent, whatever's going to keep you motivated, and like whatever you can find joy in doing, right? Like that's what I would say that you need to do. But it's got to be something that keeps you consistent and keeps you active, not something that is super intense and good for you, but you can only do like once a month, or when you do it, you feel like shit for a week because you can't recover. Like that's not going to get you there, right? So,
Right.
yeah, develop strength, but develop strength in whatever way is going to be the most consistent for you.
Yeah.
And
I
usually
would
that means whatever's like the most enjoyable way.
Yeah, I would say also don't be afraid to, if it's in your budget, like hire a professional, even if it's on the short term, because like we are people that know what we're doing and we can help you find that. We can help you find that thing that then you can do on your own.
I would also say that. So like the cost of health, the cost of investing in your health is a lot less than the cost of your medical expenses if you
Yes.
don't.
Prevention is
So
far more cost
yeah,
efficient than treatment.
I can't say that enough. As I watch, some of my people get into their later years, my loved ones, uncles, aunts, grandparents, all those other things, like the cost of them just doing an ounce of preventative work, exercise, working out, choosing the right things to eat, going to sleep when it's time to go to sleep, and like just healthy habits. Yes, is there some investment in it? Sure, but like that as opposed to whatever medicine that you now have to take for the rest of your life, that's a a very small investment compared to that expense.
All right, Chris, we had said that we might ask each other a question. Do you have one that's top of mind, or do we actually get enough questions that we've said all the things we want to say?
Uh, I I do have one.
Okay,
I do
fire
have
away.
one for you. I do have one for you. So, okay, you're somebody who's seen a lot of different sides of the industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you've trained as a coach with high level athletes. You've trained with general population clients. You've trained with kids. You've done a lot of that, and you've seen what we've just talked about. You've seen a lot of different trends, right? How do you keep yourself from diving in to whatever is the latest trend? Like, how do you stay true to yourself and say, hey, I'd like to borrow from that, but I'm not going to make everything all about high rocks?
That is such a good question, and it goes back to literally episode 1 of this podcast. Like one of the first things that I learned from you, and like sayings wise, but also like the deeper meaning behind it, is methods are many, principles are few. Methods don't always last, principles always do. And so, very early in my career as a trainer, from you specifically as like my number one mentor, but also from people like Courtney Dipp, who was my first boss, my first fitness director at the time Sport and Health in Reston, Virginia, and other people that were really formative for me early in my career. And I was lucky to be surrounded by a lot of good ones. Is like I have a very set of principles within the training world, like things that either when I hear about something new, I'm like, oh, that makes sense because it fits somewhere in the box, or like that's very outside the box. And either I need to like, I can examine it and be like, oh, maybe I need to expand the box, or go like, there's a reason that's outside the box. That's actually a very silly thing. Why would somebody do that? And there's plenty of both.
Right.
And so I think that when we talk to someone like Brad from ISOFIT, or we talk to some of the people that we've had on about rotation, or muscle stimulation with some kind of device, or like whatever, like, oh, that makes sense. That fits in. How do I incorporate that within? Like, who does that help? And I think that's the other element, is like one of the principles is it's not really about me. It's about the clients, which actually makes training myself really hard at times. So my own fitness is the one that I struggle to program often the most, because you have all these million things. You're like, but I kind of want to do that, but I kind of want to do that. And that's why, when I have an actual race that I'm preparing for, I think my training gets a lot better because I'm
Right.
more focused. But it really does come down to that saying that was like literally the title of the first episode of the show that we ever did, that has been like the foundational principle about principles, if you will, which is that if you have a set of things that, like, progressive overload is how you ultimately gain, whether that's speed, strength, whatever, power, do no harm, minimum effective dose, like these things, and then think about the methods that you're learning through that lens. I think that's what keeps me on track. I'm
Yeah.
going to make you answer your own question, because that's better than anything I can think of at this point.
So there's a lot of new information that comes across my way, whether it be through social media, whether it be through conversations with people, whether it be through my own like research and like just diving into topics. So for me, it always has to go back to evidence-based research. Like that's where I start everything, right? And it's not that I don't value expert opinion, but like expert opinion is probably number 5 on the hierarchy of, do I trust this information? Do I trust what I'm looking at? Right. So my first is going to be, peer-reviewed, evidence-based trials, and like a large number of those. Second is going to be a smaller number of randomized trials with not as much peer reviews. And then third would be like anecdotal evidence. Fourth would be my own personal evidence, and fifth would be expert opinion, right? And the reason why I try to take expert opinion, and even myself, the reason why I take my own opinion out of it is because there are so many emotions attached to your training methods, your relationship with your client. There's so many things that are variables that are impossible to measure, and even within yourself, if you're not aware of them, they're impossible to understand and know, like how it's influencing the way that you're making decisions, right? And so what I would hate to do is give people information based off of emotions I was feeling at the time that I don't even feel anymore, right? So like for me, it's got to go down to the evidence. And then once I have the evidence that something works or doesn't work, or it's something that I should try, then it's something that I try to sprinkle in, like you said, minimum effective dose. Is this something that fits within what we're trying to do? Is this something that's even appropriate for this particular client? And is this something that like they're going to buy into? Because if they're not going to buy into this, then I probably shouldn't be doing this, right?
Right.
So that, and like trusting evidence more than trusting myself. And then like for me, um, relationships have always been a big part of everything that we do. But as I go on and I try to like find the next phase of my career or whatever it is, right? Like even now with the guys that come in, they call me names like Mr. Han and like Master Uguay and things like I'm in that phase of my career now. So as things come across my way, like I have to be able to trust the evidence. I have to be able to trust myself in being able to analyze the evidence, and then I have to trust myself in being able to deliver to the client, and I have to trust that that client is going to receive it. Right. So there's a lot of trust that I have to have, and a lot of that trust is not just the evidence side of things, right? The evidence side is like whether or not I'm even going to give this a try, and then from there it's okay. How do I implement this in a way that doesn't violate anybody's trust here, right? So yeah, that to me is kind of how I look at the way that I get caught up in new trends, or the way that I try to decide like how this is going to affect my programming, if at all.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. That's where we're going to leave it for today / this year. We'll be back in January with, well, another year of shows. We're not going anywhere. Very excited to just keep rolling on with talking about so many of the things that we talked about today. We'll see what new trends emerge in 2025, what changes come to the high performance space, what cool people we talk to. But it's another year in the books for us here at Train with the Best. You can follow us on Instagram at Train with the Best 21, Chris at Trainer Gorez, me at Craig Hoffman. And we hope you had a great Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever it is that you're celebrating this time of year, and hope that you have a happy new year. See you in 2025. Thanks so much for listening to us here on the Train with the Best podcast.